Hello and welcome to season 4, episode 9 of The Dive. I am Kobe, joined by Azael and MarkZ, and everyone at home now gets to judge who has the nicest bedroom because we are social distancing for this episode.
Well, mine has a dog in it, so I think
mine obviously fails because I have no pets.
I had a cat behind me though until just now because they started meowing and I gave him food. But
was your cat wearing a bandana?
He has. One's wearing a bow tie.
Okay. That's actually pretty close competition then.
Yeah.
I think furniture-wise, Kobe's room is looking pretty nice though.
Yeah. I mean, the plant is on a floor. A nice end table would really tie it all together, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. How's the feng shui of his room,
bed stand right here? I like Mark's art though. Mark has the best art. If you can zoom in and see these teenage fascination with Azael.
We were practicing this yesterday, or doing a tech chess, and they're like, "Hey, your wall's really boring. Can you put some more stuff?" I'm like, "I have a plant, I have a nice purse, and all my decorations are on this wall." But I was like, "Okay, well, I'll try and spice it up a little bit."
Yeah, it's looking great, Mark. I really like your taste. I've got to say.
Just pick my favorite person on the broadcast team.
All right. Well, we don't have any room sponsors, but BizDev did look for us to shout out the LCS sponsors because they are sticking with us through all the ups and downs that everyone is dealing with the coronavirus. And I saw Travis mentioning and really thanking Alienware. Alienware is also an LCS sponsor, along with Bud Light, Honda, MasterCard, Red Bull, Secret Lab, and State Farm. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome that we have these partners that are willing to work with us and stick with us. As you know, it's obviously a pretty tough time for everyone involved, and it can be tough to meet sponsor obligations right now. So it's awesome that they are willing to stick with us. But speaking of awesome things, honor report. You guys got it all ready this week?
Yes,
Who wants to start it off?
Second monitor ready to go. I have 2 for each, so I actually should go last in case there's any overlaps.
All right, I will start then because I have the most obvious report.
Florida?
It's coronavirus and everyone that is still going out and partying and going to giant greetings and spreading it. I mean, it's the most obvious report, but it has to be done. This thing is just screwing up the whole world.
Yeah, I mean, people need to take it seriously, right? That was what my report was as well. Seeing videos of people in Florida, the beach is packed, people are going out, to the bars and stuff. It's like, come on, man. People need to think about it, not just, oh, well, look, am I in danger? They need to think about who else they are putting in danger and who else you are really putting at risk, even if you're not someone who would really be as adversely affected by it. So people need to smarten up, definitely. Unfortunately, my hometown was actually in the news, and it's never in the news because it's a little city, for Queen students, which is the big university there, saying, the show must go on. We have to have our St. Patrick's Day celebrations. We can't. It's like, oh, no, you hate to see it.
That's what I was gonna say. Is even with if the people aren't going to be responsible, at least the people in charge need to be responsible for them. The L.A. governor and mayor. I don't know which one exactly made the decree, but they shut all bars down, they shut all restaurants down except for takeout and stuff. So, if the people in Florida are going to go to the beach, shut the beaches down.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not trying to put politics into it, but just it seems like that needs to happen.
Some places are already moving to police enforced quarantines as well. So it's extremely serious. Even myself, I was a little bit slow catching up to how big this was getting, but this is definitely a giant problem across the world. For a lighter note, though, time for some honors. We want to balance all the reports with honors as well. And my honor is going out to everyone behind the scenes of the LCS. Leadership, engineering, graphics, producers, observers, content, who worked to get the LCS back up for this weekend already. I was pretty scared that we were going to be down for an extended period of time, but they pushed through, and all the players are on board and going to play from whatever the setups that we can manage. So big honors to everybody getting it up.
Yeah, people are definitely grinding behind the scenes, trying to get things going as much as possible. Even this last weekend, Ovilee, organized some in-houses. The teams were organizing some of their own in-houses and stuff. So people are trying to, bring a sense of normalcy to everyone, in some pretty crazy times. Kobe and I had the same report, so I'll give my honor too now. My honor was actually, related to the pandemic as well, but it's to all the people that are essentially keeping the cities running, right? All the health workers out there, all the delivery people, all the garbage men, all the grocery workers, all the people that are actually, still out there working and keeping the cities running. And that's something that I think it's easy to take for granted, that, stuff is still showing up for you while you're, hiding in your apartment, if you are. But it's, these people are out there putting themselves at risk and keeping things running. So I have a lot of respect to everyone who's out there still grinding and still keeping things moving. And then Mark, what you got for us?
So we kind of skipped over my report.
Well, we're doing reports and honors each.
Oh,
so
okay.
you get to do your both.
All right. Well then, so my honor was Ovilee May for doing the in-houses and making sure that was actually up and running. I also had the broadcast team, but Kobe snatched that one up. So Ovilee, good job. Then my other one was the grocery store scumbags I've seen. I was shopping last night, and these two dudes sprinted out of the, as I was parking and coming in, these two guys sprinted out with baskets full of shit that they just stole. And wow. I saw the people come out and
Yikes.
take a picture of their cars. They drove away, the people who work there and stuff. And then my girlfriend was telling me her boss saw people get in a fight over some stuff. So I think that was the first time that obviously I've been self-quarantined, but honestly, that's not that far from my normal life anyways. So I don't think I had and no one I personally knew had gotten sick yet. And so while I was reading the news and obviously everything was really scary and all that, I think that was the first time that I was just what the hell?
Yeah.
What am I? So grocery store scumbags, stealing, beating people up. I've seen fights. Yeah. Hoarding, just act normal. That's the part is everyone's oh, they just took all the toilet paper. I guess when I go, I should buy all the toilet paper I can. It's no, that's just everyone just acted normal, but didn't go out as much.
Yeah, thankfully a lot of the stores now are putting more actual limitations on it, so the similar thing happened when I went to Ralph's near me a week ago. I actually tweeted about this, that I went in and I went to go get some toilet paper because we were running low on toilet paper, and it's all gone, of course, right? And so I talked to the guy stocking shelves. I was like, "Oh, do you think you guys will have toilet paper in soon? What's the deal?" And he's like, "Dude, it's crazy out here. People are stealing all the toilet paper. People are taking it out." He's like, "Some guy got mugged outside the Ralph's last night, for his toilet paper." And I'm like, "Oh my God, people." Because there's not actually, as to the best of my understanding, there's not a food shortage or anything. It's just, people are overstocking up. So it's pretty crazy, but good report.
I mean, there are also, I have to remember, a lot of people that cannot afford to self-quarantine.
Totally.
So as much as just be normal, a lot of people cannot just be normal in these times, and some people are more stressed than others.
I think he meant more be normal as in taking a normal amount of food from the grocery store and a normal amount of supplies. And that's what I think.
Yeah, I meant you have to obviously adapt to the situation, but you don't need to buy 10 bottles of hand sanitizer so that there's none in any store anywhere. I think that's the part where it's chill out a little bit.
Or the guy in the news who bought what was 1,770 bottles of hand sanitizer, drove around in multiple states to clear out every store and try to resell them. It's pretty ridiculous. But
those kinds of things.
Yeah, but LCS coming back. The announcement was made. Very, very excited to hear this. I had no idea. Were we going to be on hold for a week, a month? Is the season going to end? But really, really excited to see that the kind of official announcement actually came out. From Greeley, pleased to announce the return of LCS and Academy starting this week with online matches and continuing for the remainder of the spring split. Both leagues will resume with the scheduled Week 8 matches, although we'll be shifting Monday league games to Saturday and Sunday. In addition to this change, Academy Rush will be canceled and replaced with 5 Academy games broadcasted back-to-back for Weeks 8 and 9. We expect to have Academy and LCS matches updated on lolesports.com soon. You can see this at LCS Official if you guys want to check out the full announcement, but great news.
Yeah. He also said that with the teams are going to play from their facilities or from their individual areas, but we're not sending. He said what we're mirroring what EU is doing, and EU says they're not sending refs in person because of the health risks. What they're doing is having a bunch of extra cameras monitoring all the players. They also have access to the players' computers. They're doing screen capture. So they're doing everything possible without actually introducing more humans and more possible carriers to uphold competitive integrity. And both regions are doing a similar thing. So they put a lot of thought into this. I was happy to see that too.
Yeah, and like Academy, for people who are concerned, like this is how Academy worked, probably with even less oversight. We would have refs, I think, pretty often in like whatever Discord, Skype, Vent server you're using. And so this is not like unprecedented, like, oh man, now everyone can cheat. It is obviously not quite as secure as LCS, where you have your, like, for people who don't know, at the LCS, manufacturers ship the players' peripherals directly to Riot, so that there's no chance anyone loads some third-party stuff like was happening in the CS scene a couple of years ago or whatever. So like obviously like that's not just quite the same level of oversight, but it's nothing to be like, oh my god, now everyone can cheat. It's like this is how Academy's been forever.
Yeah, I mean, they take that stuff really seriously, right? Obviously at LCS, those peripherals are literally kept under lock and key. They're only brought out for matches and for setup. No one's allowed to use them. They take this stuff super seriously, but people's health is first and foremost. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be people watching them on webcams. There's going to be literal screen tracking. Like they have the software to see like all the key presses and all these things and see exactly what they're doing, and also be in the audio calls. So there's not really any big worries, I think, about any unsportsmanlike stuff going on, because competitive integrity is incredibly important, obviously, especially with playoffs looming. But I'm very, very excited that we can kind of get the league back and have at least LCS somewhat feeling like it's back to normal. Obviously, it's going to be different, right? Like if we're doing an analyst desk, or if we're not sure exactly what everything's going to look like, it will probably be something like this, with webcams up, or maybe like Hotline League style with boxes up. They're trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do. Production obviously is not going to be to the same level as it is in studio when everyone's on site and it's like a well-oiled machine with tons of people working on it. Working remote brings its own difficulties, and it's not going to be in the stadium, so it will look different, it will feel different. But I think the main thing is we're going to have the same high quality matches, we're going to have the same high quality casting and content around it, and that I think is something that a lot of LCS fans are going to be really excited about.
Yeah. Plus, I saw a lot of people with questions about, how are they going to perform if it's 60 ping for LA? But we're going to be playing on tournament realms. So it'll be, I think they said it was going to be 5 or 7 ping higher than being at the studio, which really doesn't affect it at all. So even though the teams have slightly different gaming houses, I think it should be very even playing field as far as that, because all the teams here are in LA.
And when I was on Tournament Realm just the other day, I had 7 ping, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so it may differ for various people, but 7 ping is nothing, right? It's really not going to be noticeable. It shouldn't have any impact, really.
Yeah, the only thing that you might see more of is a few more pauses, because you are online still. So like if you get a ping spike, which can happen, people do have to pause for that probably. So I think that's probably the only major concern from at least like a ping issue is just that factor. But people scrim on that. That's where they scrim. They actually play way more games in this environment than they do on the LCS environment. So I do think that will largely offset because people are so used to typing /pause when they're in a scrim and their ping spikes.
Yeah. I'm hoping we're not going to have any, oops, kick the router time moments or things like that from home, because it's obviously it's a different setup. It will be a bit different, right? And sometimes things happen. Your internet lags out or your PC blue screens or whatever, and these things are obviously a bit different if you are at home, but it'll be interesting, and I'm actually like really excited for it. I think it's pretty cool to be like one of the only sports leagues that's going to be able to be running during this time, because we have the ability to run online, unlike traditional sports, right? Which I'm seeing, NBA and NHL and some of these leagues are doing things where they're doing like simulated games online. Like the Montreal Canadiens were tweeting out, and someone tagged me on it like, "Oh, you should cast this," because I'm a Canadiens fan. That they're running simulated versions of their games in like NHL 2020 or whatever the newest version was, right? And they were like broadcasting that, just because it's like, well, what do you put on the air, right? All of a sudden, all your content, all your broadcast hours are kind of looking pretty empty when you're running sports 24/7 normally.
Yeah, this is esports time to shine.
Let's go.
And I think fans are actually somewhat, I wouldn't say all of them. I'm really interested to see what the numbers look like on LCS and stuff when this fires up. Because like the in-houses were getting between like 30 and 40K from my understanding, and that's spread across like Ovilee and Doublelift and all these different people.
I saw Doublelift with over 50.
Yeah, Doublelift at one point was 55K. I think I saw Ovilee almost up to 30K. And there was a lot of other people.
Right. So I'm wondering, when this is all in the official Riot broadcast, if the, I don't want like the event of it, I don't know how to put it, but like the novelty, the strange times that we're in draws more people. And I think there's a larger acceptance in the esports community of scuffedness that kind of adds a bit of levity and like fun to the broadcast that people love, like a bit of jank in esports. And so I think like this could actually in some ways be really fun.
Look at the Tyler 1 championships, right?
Exactly.
Like that's the beauty of it. People love it. It's a lot of fun to see that kind of thing. And I do think, yeah, you're right. People, because esports, we're not that far removed from just the best broadcast being scuffed, right? Like it really hasn't been that long since like the best broadcast you could find was still pretty scuffed. So, things have moved up pretty quickly, but most esports fans still remember those days or watch online tournaments where there's a lot of that. And so people are kind of used to it. And it's like, it's some home cooking, it's some it's some good stuff. Makes you feel like a kid again when people are on their webcams. And
I'm looking for, like, I don't know what's going to happen with the analyst desk, but like the idea that James and I are just in our bedrooms, breaking down, your cat's going crazy behind you while you're casting. You're like, oh my God, they stole the bear. And your cat's like,
he's so wide-eyed right now. He looks like he's tripping out.
Yeah, I mean, like the idea that like my cat's gonna jump on my lap for the State Farm analyst desk is like, if that happens.
I just picture you so much. I as soon as I heard remote analyst desk, I'm just picturing MarkZ with like a giant cup of coffee and a bathrobe, just chilling hard.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I was super stressing out about like streaming and stuff and quality and everything, but people are just happy to have anything to watch right now, right?
Yeah.
Everybody just wants something to take their mind off it. So super happy to see what we'll come up with, because it does remind, like you're talking about the old days. I remember doing like before the LCS even began, doing like online TSM tournaments, casting and stuff. I know you also casted like StarCraft and everything. Yeah. Back in those days, there were no standards. Like if there was video feed up and you could hear the audio and they were synced,
damn,
you were like, oh, game's delayed 40 minutes. That's not so bad.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of the tournaments, a lot of the WoW tournaments I used to cast online.
Just watching you cast.
Yeah, me too. It's
can I play with your cat? I don't have a cat.
You can. Yeah. You could like reach through, But a lot of the WoW tournaments I used to cast online, it would be like I would roll out of bed, I would get on my computer, I was spectating it, I was reffing it, I was adminning it, I was casting it, like I'm doing it all here, and it was so janky. Oh, see, Mark's cat is playing with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, don't take him down.
He's like, this art is terrible. Get off the walls.
What'd you do to my walls?
One thing I'm actually really kind of interested in too is your guys' thought on, we hear in the past so much talk about, scrim gods and people who just like couldn't make it work on stage as much, but they're so good in scrims in their comfort zone and blah, blah, blah. Do you think this would help any players to kind of get into that comfort zone and be more relaxed, since there's not going to be a crowd in front of them? They're going to be in their own apartment. Like, do we think we'll actually see an increase in play from some of these guys?
So here's my theory on that, is that people talking about being scrim gods and stuff in the past, I think Golden Glue is a pretty good example, because this has happened multiple times, right?
Mhm.
And it has more to me to do with the mindset of it being a scrim and there actually being no pressure, right? Rather than, it's just literally sitting up at the stadium, because they've been in the LCS arena for so long now, and people still refer to, the difference in performance from scrims to LCS for players that have been playing on the LCS stage for 5 years. So I don't think there's going to be that big boost, but it would be sick if like we have pop off performances from like Ryoma and Aka and stuff, and they're all of a sudden just like getting 20 kills, and you're just like, oh my god, this is the fix.
Just got to keep playing online. I think it's possible, because I had some experience, with Curse in season 4. We had a number of players who were affected by anxiety pretty heavily and like the stress of playing on stage. And so I'm, part of me wonders if we were in that, like I'm trying to put our team playing from our gaming house. And I feel like it would probably make things a little less stressful. Like you're saying, it's not a scrim, it's more serious, but not having to go on stage and go through the tech chest with the crowd going and, looking up and seeing all those faces. I think it might help some of the people who do struggle with nerves, but I also think it can hurt people who are good, like, quote unquote game day players, because some people, that energy feeds them.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that, sometimes just being able to stay calm in that environment, is an enormous advantage. And it's really interesting. And I think, like, for the most part, I don't think it will make a huge difference. But I do think that the difference becomes greater the further you go along. So I do think that there's a huge difference from playing on LCS stage to, say, being in your first LCS finals, right? Where there's 10, 20,000 people or whatever in a stadium. And players are literally telling me how they're vibrating because the crowd is so loud that it's just like you're literally feeling the roar of the crowd, and how crazy of an experience that is when you look around and it's just like, you're in this stadium full of people. So, if we are remote and having this type of situation when spring finals comes around, that I do think is an interesting conversation, because I do think that has a real difference for some players.
Yeah. People have been bringing up the, will 2020 forever have an asterisk on it for all these different competitions? And it definitely will, because these are all different circumstances, right? So many things have changed. I was wondering for you guys, though, because I was thinking about it. For me, casting is going to feel a lot different, too.
Yeah.
It's going to be maybe more difficult to get into that focused mode here. Like, we're so used to our routine of going in, wardrobe, makeup, talking to people in the morning, getting the stories done, talking to the writer, setting up Octopus, all this stuff. And without that routine, it is going to feel different for us as well.
I'm even thinking about my neighbors, right? If I'm popping off about, oh my God, it's a bitch, you know what I mean? Like, my neighbors are going to be listening to me screaming. They're going to be hearing that. So that is even a bit weird, thinking about, the energy in the environment. And even from a technical standpoint, something I was thinking about, and I'm sure, you're going to find this true too, Kobe, is we use hand signals a lot. And we depend so heavily on body language and hand signals to know who wants to get in where, and especially if we're tri-casting, to not step on each other, because that is something that you develop with time, and I can look over at Kobe and tell, okay, like based on his body language, he's gonna go here or whatever, right? And or he's got a little bit of point, or he like wants me to go next, or okay, we're gonna let Freak jump in or whatever, right? And this stuff, not having that, there's going to be hiccups, right? We're going to be casting and we're going to start talking at the same time and stopping at the same time. Even with this, there's going to be more bumps.
Yeah, I've seen Kobe do his little hand thing. I got this full screen. I'm like staring at my monitor because a couple of times I have been like, oh wait, who's talking next? Even with this, whereas normally I would just make eye contact and kind of know. And like the environment's just different. I almost dropped an F-bomb at the start of this episode. I might have even done it. I don't even know. Just because
you can get away with one or two on the dive.
Right. But I'm just saying, like in my warning, I have a nice top on, but I got pajama pants on underneath. Like it's just a different energy to like when you're not in the studio and you don't have like the professional, like I'm in a suit and tie. Like my mindset's just different. Like I feel like I'm talking to you guys in a relaxed, non-professional environment, and I think it's going to affect everyone a similar way to some degree. Like it's maybe a buff to Captain Flowers because he kills it on the bronze stream cast and stuff like that. Like does some of that like start kicking into his mind because he's not under the bright lights on stage and stuff?
To be fair, he kills it in the LCS cast.
Yeah,
he's trash at LCS. That guy's garbage.
No, that's not what I was saying.
No one likes his casting.
I do like it though.
Yeah,
I want to see Mark unleashed because some people are like way different just in everyday life, right? So it's gonna be pretty fun.
What are you saying about me? See me.
It should be fun. I mean, I think it's gonna feel weird for us for the start, but I think everyone's gonna fall back into it. Most of us have done a lot of it. I mean, I started casting in 2010. I've done so much online casting. Last a couple of years was obviously the super professionalized, studio style show at LCS, but like I've done thousands of hours of casting from home.
Yeah, I mean, but it's so different, right? Because I was also like thinking back to mine, before the LCS started. And we were doing online TSM tournaments that were run. Literally, Reggie just asked me and this guy Wombat to cast. And the conversations that we had, especially by today's standards, would just get me fired right now. And that's why nobody knows who Wombat is. Like, so some of the things like they were like, I don't think we can bring this type of language or conversation or stuff to more professional broadcast. So while we do have history to fall back on, there's also things that I might have to like hard no on.
I mean, I would be getting fired from my early casts, not for them being inappropriate, for them being garbage. Someone linked me. This was like a year or two ago, but someone linked me. I think the first time I ever cast, and it was because the first time I ever cast was actually at a BlizzCon that I was traveling and I was doing some sponsor stuff for EG and I didn't qualify for this BlizzCon. I really wanted to go. So I ended up getting a cast and I'd never cast anything before. I was so bad. And it was just like someone linked this to me. And I listened to about 30 seconds and I'm like, oh God, just get me out. Like, please, no.
That's if you go, my first Blame game is still up on YouTube. And that was like the first thing I had really done on camera, and it's so bad.
I'm gonna go watch it after this episode.
Go for it. You'll be amazed at like my framing's wrong, like everything's wrong.
It's pretty funny. Kind of reminds me of, have you guys seen the Yasuo interviewing Bjergsen?
Yeah,
like that interview is just like so funny, especially for someone who's now so comfortable, obviously on camera with Yasuo. And I mean, he had been streaming back then too, but it's just really funny when you're kind of in this different zone, how uncomfortable people can look.
Yeah, I mean, getting back to the asterisk conversation a little bit, I do think this is something I've been talking with fans a fair amount on Hotline League. People are kind of interested in where history will land on this, and it's one of those things where, domestically, we all are in the same bubbles of what's happening. So like all the LPL teams, it's been longer for them, but all of them are kind of on even playing field, and same with NA. And so while, you can say, at least domestically, this shouldn't have an asterisk. I still think it's kind of hard to not acknowledge that the environments are so different, and like chaos will upset, the quote unquote order a little bit and give teams different opportunities than they might have had elsewhere. So I don't know where you guys land on this, but I can't imagine 5 years from now talking about this like a normal year somewhat.
It's not going to be a normal year because it's not going to be a normal year in anyone's life, right?
Yeah.
I think this is something that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life because it's such a unique set of circumstances, not just for LCS but for life, right? I think it's one of those things where when these crazy events happen, you're going to think back and you're going to think, where was I when X happened? What was I doing when X happened? And this is going to be one of those things, I think, for almost everyone who lives through it. So, I mean, in that way, yes, there will be an asterisk on the season because it's different. It's unique. It's not going to be like anything else. If they win and the celebration is them over a webcam, instead of being on stage in front of 10,000 people, guess what? That's different. And to me, though, the important distinction is that does not mean it's worse. That does not mean it is no longer valuable. It is different. It is, something that they have to deal with, but everyone is on a level playing field. And if Cloud9 wins, if TSM wins, whoever wins, it doesn't actually matter. They will have earned that in the same way that another team would have earned any other championship. So as far as like, did you deserve it if you win this season? Yes, of course you did. I think that there's no asterisk as far as the, competitive worth of a title.
Yeah. And I saw some people specifically asking about Cloud9 and if they win, because it's been so long. I'd say, thankfully for them, they also established an insane level of dominance previous to all these hiccups where nobody's going to be like, Cloud9, they fluked into it. I don't know about that roster. They didn't really deserve it. So I think that they're definitely covered both ways. And I think it's really interesting looking forward too, because we were coming off one of our biggest and most interesting weeks where TSM finally took a game off of Cloud9 and put a stop to this big streak and had a 2-0 week. And everyone is getting super excited for more competition in the league, more teams rising up. And another one of the conversations floating around is like, with our little bit of time off, are we going to see more teams start to pop up? A lot of people, of course, say Team Liquid, because you expect that roster with time to get better. But as we've seen from our stocks, that hasn't been true quite yet. What do you guys think looking a little bit forward?
It'll be interesting, right? It's hard to say. I do think one of the big discussions is, does this time off help one team more than another or hurt one team more than another? I think the obvious one to look at is Liquid because they are performing so far below expectation. They need to win, a lot of their next games, right? They're really kind of up against it. I think, at least 3 of 4 people are thinking, right? Because they are sitting 6-8 right now. So I think the minimum they would probably get in with is 9. So yeah, they need to go 3-1 or 4-1. They have FlyQuest. I know their last game is against Cloud9. Then the week 8 ones are Golden Guardians and EG.
Yeah.
So it's like those are the ones that you're kind of like, this is must win. It feels like, and then you're thinking, okay, well maybe you beat one of FlyQuest or Cloud9 and hope things kind of fall in your favor and you can get in. I do think that the more time they're given, probably the better it does work for them because they are obviously like behind the schedule, so to speak, because of the visa issues, because of the double of situation, swapping him in and out, and all these things. So I think the more time you give them to practice, the more likely it is that they can get up to their level. I don't think anyone looks at this team as sitting at 6-8 and believes, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. Yeah, that is the level of these 5 players on a team together. So I think it should help them. And looking forward to this weekend, EG and Golden Guardians, their playoff lives could be decided right here. If you go 0-2, you're probably just done. And even if you go 1-1, then you're saying you now must beat Cloud9, which is like feels like almost a death sentence, but could set up for one of the most exciting kind of final games of the season.
Yeah, I mean TL has the toughest strength of schedule remaining when you just look at how many wins their opponents have. 100 Thieves is right above them. And then CLG, and like 100 Thieves was a team that was like, ooh, they look like they could make playoffs, but their remaining strength of schedule is really tough. And so that's why it's scary for Team Liquid because normally we'd be like 3-1, that's not that hard, but they're 6-8, and now they're dealing with this. Yes, they got an extra week of practice, but I wonder what it was like for teams to have their games canceled, and if that took some of the urgency away, or if it made it kind of harder to focus over the weekend and stuff like that. I don't know if this more time is really the same kind of time that you would typically get.
I think that's a good point because, most of the teams, even though they have a lot of the players have their own apartments, they generally go into the office to scrim, right? They go into their training facility to scrim and whatnot. And for Team Liquid, for example, if you're used to going into the Alienware, training facility and scrimming, well, with social distancing, you now can't do that. So we don't actually know how long it took them or if it took them long at all to kind of get things back on schedule as far as scrimming either. So it may not truly be a full week of practice.
I think for sure it isn't, right? Because people weren't even sure that we were going to be back on this weekend.
Yeah.
So we had all these in-houses. I know FlyQuest, Cloud9, Dig, and Immortals also had their own tournament just yesterday that they were planning on continuing throughout this week, that they probably had to cancel some of those plans or get things back into, serious practice mode. So, everybody was trying to make these backup plans of content and stuff to do and training. So I think a lot of it is going to be what teams are actually good on the fly and can actually just, get it back together without extra practice. Because like you're talking about, even though it's technically more time since we last played, it has been, kind of panic time for a lot of people, and it has not been focused working. So, maybe we'll see the difference between how the teams took that off time and who can actually be good in a short ready period.
So what are you guys thinking then for TL this coming weekend, and also for their opponents, right? Because they have EG and Golden Guardians, two teams that are also trying to be in that playoff hunt. EG is 7-7, Golden Guardians is 6-8 alongside TL. Are you expecting TL to be able to kind of get the 2-0 and keep hopes alive?
So I am going to spoiler right now. I'm keeping my stocks in Team Liquid for the rest of the season, but I am really, really worried about it. We evaluated the win percentage of every team's upcoming matches. Team Liquid are playing the hardest schedule by opponent win percentage. So it's definitely scary for them as far as the lineup that they have coming up. But I don't know. I feel like I have to keep my stocks in here.
We're holding just like in the real stock market.
Exactly. We gotta hold. Just keep holding.
I'm holding in the real stock market too.
Double has got to play with his old TSM members in the in-houses and stuff, and that old TSM went 2-0. Maybe he got some confidence back.
He's got a win streak.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah. What do you think, Mark?
No, I'm keeping my stocks in TL out of stubbornness, but I actually think they're in a lot of trouble. Because it's not just like, go with the status quo and you make playoffs. Like they're actually out of playoffs. They are currently behind the tiebreaker with Golden Guardians, so they definitely need to. Obviously, they need to win that just from a standings perspective, but they're probably gonna have to play tiebreakers too, even if they do end up 9-9 by going 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, they might not go 3-1. They could just end up 8-10 and still miss. So I think there's a really long shot for them because they need to crawl up over a number of these other teams. EG has a tough strength of schedule, but they could easily go 2-2. They're still 9-9. Then there's a whole number of teams that can make 9-9 much easier than Team Liquid.
Yeah. I mean, it is really true, and it's kind of interesting, because there's the standings are really so close, right? We have not much of a spread, like from TL up. There's really like so many teams in this grouping. There's 6 teams in this grouping that are essentially between fighting for like the 4th to 6th type spot. TSM and Cloud9, obviously people are expecting them to finish top 2 because TSM had a great week, but also those two teams have actually the easiest strengths of schedule. So that is something working in their favor as well. But like, what are the other teams that you guys are kind of looking at thinking that they may be able to actually kind of sneak in, right? If not TL, Mark, if you don't have faith in them, are you just looking at based on strength of schedule and thinking, Dignitas, for example, who has a much easier strength of schedule, are you predicting them to get in then?
No, they're dead to me. I think Immortals EG are two teams that I would expect to stay in. They do have some tough matches and they play each other, so it could be one of those things where they end up knocking each other out. But if they can pull a win against one of their slightly more difficult opponents too, I think it's possible. I think 100 Thieves is going to drop out if I had to just predict it. Like, their strength of schedule is so hard. And I think Dig's not in, so I think Golden Guardians, despite having a relatively tough one, can maybe make it. If they are able to go, I think they need to win 2 or 3. Yeah,
They're
I don't know. It's so
tied
hard
with Team Liquid right now.
Yeah, with the head-to-head. So even if they lose, then they can pick up a win somewhere else, maybe. But there's so many of these teams are playing C9, FlyQuest, and TSM, which is why it's so hard to predict. Because if you win a single one of those games, it makes it so different for the entire landscape.
Yeah, I actually really wanted to focus on the Team Liquid Golden Guardians match coming up this weekend because they are tied right now. I feel like both of them need that win so badly, especially because this is going to be momentum off of the break week basically, and they're direct competitors for trying to get that last spot in. And looking at the opponent win percentage, at least Golden Guardians is on the easier side. The third hardest or the third easiest basically as far as opponent win percentage. And and remember that Golden Guardians were the ones that started this big downfall for Team Liquid. I feel like when Keith hooked double lift and they got the 2v2 kill in lane, it was just like the world came crashing down. Yeah, they had all the roster issues and everything else to rely on, but this was a big part for Golden Guardians in their big surge. So I feel like a lot of people are kind of sleeping on this team since it's not a team that has super high highs, but they have been putting in work and they've acquired enough wins to be in the same position in striking distance to make it into playoffs.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of funny that you mentioned Keith because Keith is obviously now replaced, right? He got subbed out by Huhi, and it's so weird. I feel like when you look at a match like this on paper, when you really look at most of the matches for TL on paper, you want to think, okay, yeah, of course, just like player by player, they're just better, right? And it's so easy to expect them to win off of that, but it just hasn't been happening. So I think we kind of have to look a little bit at what is actually the level that they are bringing forward. What are some of the issues that they're bringing forward? And something that I have really struggled with TL is some of their drafts. I feel like they have been not consistently doing a good job in draft. They have often had, very limited win conditions or like poor ways to actually interact with their opponent's compositions. And I think this is something that has been really a struggle for them. And coming into this next week, like I want to see TL play simple League of Legends. We talk about TSM and some of these teams that are maybe having more time to experiment and try different strategies. You don't get that anymore with TL. You're 6-8. You should play the most simple style that you think knows like it can give you a win, right? Like with TL, I want to see them play through double lift, play towards bot side, play multiple forms of engage, Impact playing Ornn or some sort of tank there, have Broxa with some sort of secondary form of engage, have Jensen playing, like a control mage mid. Just play simple League of Legends and depend upon the skill of your players, because that should be able to net you wins against Golden Guardians, right? Just on a player for player basis. You're still Cora JJ versus Huhi. You're still like, looking at these teams player for player, they should have an enormous advantage.
So what you're telling me is no more Jellyman top.
No Jellyman top.
The best thing to come out of that
last game, Team Liquid, if you're looking at individual players, the names, I totally agree with you. I expect these names to have strong individual performances, but Impact with his Zach top pick for them.
The self counter pick.
Plus then they lose out on their jungle pick, which was Olaf, who needs some support to go bully people with Olaf, and Broxa can't even get the Scuttle Crab top side. Then Impact solo loses his passive, jumps in and just dies. You guys were talking a double lift on the weekend, and he was even like, what is going on here where he teleports bottom and just dies. And then in the same game, Core JJ is making these engages where like the enemy bottom lane is roaming up river. They have vision.
Yeah.
Broxa backs off and Core JJ hooks in. And I'm looking at these world champions, literal world champions, Azael, and they're inting on LCS stage.
And they picked Zoe second, like first rotation, just randomly, and gave the enemy Gragas Kiana because they didn't have to worry about what else was going to come in the mid lane.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a team draft Zoe that early.
I would not have believed that it was Core JJ if the nameplates weren't on. I swear that Nautilus game was bizarre, but I still feel like, because we have seen good games from TL, like even the week before, the tactical week. I don't think that was just about tactical. That was about TL actually playing just really well as a team, right? You know, we know that they're capable of this. What do you want to say, Mark?
I feel like we all have the same problem, though.
Yeah, like that's
gotta let go.
Yeah, it's you know, that's not who they are right now. Maybe they can get back there, and maybe they'll do it for these next 2 weeks. But if they lose a single draft against anyone but Cloud9, that could end their season. You know, we're talking about these bad drafts or Core JJ having an off game. Like, you're at the point now where you literally can't afford any of those anymore. Yeah,
it's just so weird because I feel like with the players that they have, they should be able to afford to lose draft, right? That's the TL that we're so used to seeing for 4 straight splits. Didn't always matter. It always just felt like, regardless of what TL drafted, if they got to mid game and they weren't that far behind, they would win a fight, take Baron, and then win the game. And that's kind of what we got used to watching for 2 years, right? And it's just surreal to see it happen. So would be a really exciting one. I'm really excited for all the TL games, just because win or lose, it's going to be hype. And I do think that there's a high chance of that TL versus Cloud9 game mattering a lot, you know, for TL, which I think that would be really cool. Like, it would be a really exciting way for them to kind of show, hey, we've improved, hey, we're here and we deserve it. If they had to play Cloud9 to get into playoffs, I think that would be super hype.
Yeah. And I hope C9 is still in super tryhard mode. I know that they are locked for first already, but I don't know. I feel like they'd be motivated to keep Team Liquid out of playoffs.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that these guys want to win a championship, right? And I think that they should be continuing to play as hard as they can. We saw them, you know, Cloud9 tweeting out and kind of saying like, oh, look, now that we're first, like, what champions do you want us to play? And this type of thing. I don't want that. I want them to play serious. I want, if someone beat Cloud9, us to be able to look at that and be like, damn, you actually beat Cloud9. That's really impressive. Not, damn, that part where Cloud9 picked, you know, Fiddlesticks and Garen, like, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things for me was the last week that we played when TSM delivered that loss to Cloud9. I thought it was going to be good for Cloud9 because they did not play poorly. TSM smashed them playing really well. And being able to receive a loss like that without having it affect, you know, your standings and any worry about playoffs and everything can be super good for a team to become introspective and examine how they got beat, try and get better. Whereas, you know, if they just go 12-0, it's often more difficult to examine your own flaws and remain critical. So I thought that was going to be a big win for both TSM and Cloud9. But now that we've also had this downtime and people have been doing other things, I hope they don't, you know, forget that focus, because TSM look very good now. That was, I think, the best week by far that we've seen from this team. And they, for sure, want to challenge for the top spot now, especially heading to playoffs. You know, even if they can't, you know, finish number one in playoffs, it's going to be a very serious fight. So I'm hoping that, you know, C9, like you're saying, really focus on trying to improve from that and focus on the mistakes that they made.
So to speak about TSM a little bit, then let's look at this. We have TSM Immortals coming up. That would be coming up this Saturday, I believe, for LCS. So that's, you know, TSM, I think everyone is like, yep, second best team in the league. You beat Cloud9, but they still have this track record of great week, bad week, great week, bad week. Yes, they had the back-to-back 2-0 earlier in the season, but are we now fully bought in on TSM? Do you have that unshakable faith that they're actually just a good team, or could you still see TSM coming out here and just getting smacked by Immortals?
I think they're for sure a good team. I could see them still losing a game because I said this with my John Madden-esque talk last episode. What they do depends on how they're playing. I forget what I said.
How good you are depends on how you play the game.
Yeah, but they do feel like a streaky team that does depend on draft a lot with how they're going to play because they hyper focus. Sometimes they hyper focus on win conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So if they come in this week online and play some whack stuff, I think Immortals is good enough to punish that and win. So part of me is like, yes, I still think they're the second best team. I think they will be the second best team. Maybe even they could even challenge for a championship if they're really playing well. But that doesn't mean I predict them to win or like I expect them to win every single game from here on out or anything.
Yeah, I think that TSM, to me, feel like for sure they have the second strongest spot right now. But as far as unshakable faith, that does not exist for me for anyone.
Not even Cloud9? You don't have the faith that Cloud9's a great team?
No, I don't have unshakable faith for anything ever in my life.
Okay.
I've heard too many times, Azael.
How about I don't know.
That call, it feels like you're just undermining your own historic call, but the faith remains, and you're like,
I never doubted them. Yeah.
yeah.
I said the faithful shall be rewarded, and I also said I never doubted them. Both can still be true.
What?
So it's slightly shakeable faith,
Yeah.
It's not unshakable. It's got a little bit of wobble to it, right? It's like it's not a fully busted table, but one of the legs a little bit shorter. It's got a little bit of wobble to it. Is that Cloud9 for you?
Yeah. I mean, I have confidence in them as a team. I think they're the best team.
Yeah.
But the unshakable faith thing, I feel like is kind of when people take arguments to the extremes and they just say something will always happen or something will never happen. My general philosophy is to never have 100% like that.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's like, I never doubted them at the time, I thought it was funny that I was saying that because very obviously they're so far behind. To me, I was like, people are going to get this like comedy here. And everyone's
just
hell yeah,
Kobe's so hypey.
I never doubted them either, Kobe. Let's go.
That's what I'm talking about.
That was a hype call though.
But yeah, exactly. That's like what made it even more is like, how can you not doubt them in these like crazy circumstances? Well, because nothing is ever 100%. RNG's victory is not 100%. They got all the inhibitors. They have 10,000 gold lead. Sticks say, well, maybe he gets some kills. Maybe he runs it back and they actually win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially with TSM beating them too. I think that just shows like, hey, there is another team in NA that when they're playing well can beat them. I think everyone expects TL to be another one of those teams. They haven't been there yet, but if a number of these teams are playing at their best, you think, it's at least a 3-horse race as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. You guys have some other teams you want to hit, or should we hop into some Twitter questions?
I think we got everything I want.
All right, great. We got a bunch of Twitter questions from you guys this week. We're going to start with this one from Cyrus. I want to say Feet. I don't know. Fiat? I'm not sure. Question for the dive. He asked this 2 years ago, and we answered it on air, but he wants to see if opinions have changed. And okay, so here's the question. How would you rank 1, mastery of a champion, 2, meta relevance, or 3, fitting into a team comp in terms of importance for solo queue versus pro? So, like where is your kind of scale there for solo queue versus pro?
Right. So for solo queue, I think everyone I don't know what you guys said 2 years ago, but I assume it was mastery of a champion was the most important thing.
Yeah.
Then probably meta and then team comp in the actual order you asked the question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was going to say
I had team comp, then meta. I had mastery, team comp, meta.
For solo queue. I think the 2 and 3 are pretty interchangeable for me, but I think it's very clearly for solo queue, mastery of a champion.
Yeah. If you're some like weird Fizz one trick mid and we don't need an assassin mid, I'm still like, just play the Fizz mid.
Yeah.
That's probably how I feel. So
So what do you think
Why
about
has it got to
Pro,
be a
then?
weird Fizz one trick? Why can't it
All
just
right.
be
Well, so like, what's a meta one trick champ? Like a Riven, or like that's always in meta
Mhm.
for the most part.
Lee Sin?
Yeah, you're Lee Sin. Maybe we want Sejuani. It's a better fit for the comp. It's still meta relevant. So
Mhm.
I don't know. That's actually a hard one to split the difference between meta relevance and fitting into a team comp, because anything that fits into a team comp is meta relevant. I'm having a hard time splitting those two.
I don't think that's really true, right? Like, so I mean,
I mean, like you play tank.
So that's fair, but I think at least what I take as the meaning of meta relevance is like how commonly picked is this, right? That is what I am inferring from that. So, Ornn is a meta relevant, pick because it's picked all the time. But like, even though say Maokai fills a similar role, I wouldn't say it's like a highly meta relevant pick in terms of this question right now, because it doesn't get picked in pro. So I think that's what he means, and that's kind of like how I'm gonna answer it.
Right.
It's kind of weird because a lot of people think meta stands for most effective tactics available, but so many people have so many different interpretations of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people just kind of use it as like, what are the things that
What's
are commonly
being played
picked?
right now?
Like technically, like a Talia Pantheon, right? That's a good team comp, or something, a piece of a team comp that fits really well together. But if it's not commonly picked, people are gonna be like, it's really off meta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Mark? Give us your breakdown. What about pro?
For pro, geez.
Yeah.
I would say
we already answered this question, Mark. We're just waiting for you.
2 years ago, no one watched, no one remembers.
They'll check the tapes. We'll answer.
No, they won't. So yeah, I would say, oh god, these are all so important in pro.
You want someone else to go first? You struggling?
No, I mean, unless you have yours, because I thought you were asking me to stall because you were thinking too.
No. I
Okay, well then I'll just fire one out. I would say fitting into a team comp number 1, Mastery of Champion number 2, meta relevance number 3.
Yeah, I would say, I think I'm actually like a little bit different. I still think Mastery of Champion is actually the most important. I would say Mastery of Champion, then team comp, then meta. I think that picking things that are most commonly picked is something that is super overrated. I think that there's actually like a lot of picks that fill similar roles that aren't, at least my interpretation of meta, as in they're not champions that are picked a lot. I do think that there are a lot of things that it's like, oh, well, Sejuani's banned. Well, you can replace it with another tank, or oh, Ornn's banned. You can replace it with another tank that fills a similar role. And I think that's why, it's more important to have, something that is just like fitting that role, not necessarily fitting the meta. But at the end of the day, I still think, especially, at the pro level, you need to have like a huge amount of skill on the champion, right? And like, whether it fits in your team comp or not, if someone cannot play the champion as well, I still would rather see them play something that they are extremely comfortable on, right? And I think that we see a lot of players sometimes trying to play meta. Like, look at the double Senna example. Right, that was, I think, playing something that like fits in team comp and super meta, but it didn't look good. And I think that was a case of Doublelift, not having the kind of like champion mastery on that pick.
I'll let Kobe go, so it's not just Isaac and I arguing, because I think we both we disagree a little bit. Kobe, what's yours?
So I think of meta as most effective tactics available, what it stands for. But
oh no, my cable came loose.
You unplugged it. Oh no.
It's worth. Let's get that cat.
That's a nice bow tie.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's looking good.
But so I just think that the term meta is used in a different way, right, for us. Because most effective tactics available is only for solved games. League of Legends is not a solved game. It's constantly evolving. And so I don't think that the teams simply most picked champions are actually considered the most effective tactics that are available. So if we're using the term of what is most picked as like meta, then I think that's the least important. If your team has mastery of the champion and you have a good team comp, meta to me matters 0. So I think that's only important part to me, is that the meta is at the bottom. And if you guys want to argue which one you have first or second for champion mastery or team comp in pro
who's
play,
right? No,
Well, because I had fitting into a team comp, then mastery, then meta. Isaac had mastery, team comp, meta. So we're all in agreement that meta relevance is maybe the least important. Where do you put the other one then, Kobe?
I mean, I still put mastery of a champion just because I think of people like Viper, Riven, right? If it's available for me to pick, I'm picking Riven for Viper because I've seen him on stage easily carry these games, 2v1ing backlines, flashing in, amazing plays. But it depends on the players of your team. If I have different players on my team that have an even mastery for a lot of these different champions, then I move team comp up to number 1. So in this world, in Kobe's world, both of you can get gold stars. You're both right.
Wrong.
It depends on your team.
No, I think that says more about Viper than it does what you should be aiming for. In that example, I think Doinby would be another a case where it's hey, you can put mastery of a champion as the most important thing, but I think that they incorporated his mastery of a champion. I'm gesturing over here so you can see.
I'm trying to pet your cat. I don't know if it's going to look like this when they put out the dive, but our box is Mark over here, Azael over there.
They don't line up the same because you're there for me and Mark's here for me.
Oh god,
it's all different.
So I just look like an idiot.
Yeah. Well, so what I say was Doinby and these people who have mastery of champions, they're building their team comps with them in mind. I don't think that they are shirking the team comp to go ham fist this thing in. And I think, when you start playing the game at the highest level, and you're really having to win championships, I mean, you can't just shirk your team comp because, hey, he's a really good Riven, because I don't think that will actually win you games against the best teams. And I think finding a way that Riven fits into a team comp is more important than just picking him Riven when it's up. And if it's Jace versus Maokai and your team comp needs a tank, picking Jace won't win you the game against really good teams. Having a player who can do both will. And that's, I think, that's where it starts getting a little nitty gritty, because in the Viper examples, I think the reason we feel yes is because the disparity in his champion, mastery is just too large. And that's just more about him, I think, than this question.
I would argue that, so if you're saying it's Jace versus a tank, but then again, you're assuming the person has mastery of both champions, right? So
no,
which is better? Someone who's absolute trash on the tank that you're going to put them on, or someone who's really good on the Jace, right? Even if the tank fits in the comp, if you're trash at that tank, I don't think it really does you any benefit. That's my kind of thing. And then I guess you're getting into an argument of is there a certain expected baseline of champion mastery for every pro, right? And then in that case, I think that's where it's just kind of okay.
What I'm saying is you should be building team comps that fit your player. And that's why I'm saying team comp is more important. If your player can't play Maokai, you should put him in positions where he doesn't need to pick Maokai ever. And then that's why I think team comp is more important, because you're warping the team comp to the player, not warping the player to the team comp, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
All right, I have a very relevant question. I'm going to jump to really quick here, Kobe. This one's from General. Any updates on Cat for Kobe?
We do have some updates. Nicole is on board for Cat for Kobe, who Travis is currently dating. So I feel like we got a very powerful ally here, and we're really surging.
Stop focusing, Mark.
Yeah, there we go. We got the focus. So all the support helps. Continue to tweet at him, because he comes up to me every other day and complains about how he's getting harassed by so much Cat for Kobe content, and how he had to ban it on his channel.
Yep.
So it is it's getting to him some way. So we're wearing away.
It's harassment for a good cause is what I'm hearing here. So keep it up. All right.
I was just gonna say he's gonna break eventually, because at some point it's not worth dealing with every person on Hotline League and in his Twitch chat name changing to Feline for Kobe, Kitty for Kobe, underscores now. There's so many things that eventually just end it. Just let Kobe get a cat.
There you go. All right. He has the second part of the question. More seriously, what are your thoughts on the standings and split? It seems like 1 and 2 are pretty much D9 TSM. People are having a hard time picking 3 and 4. Any quick guesses for who you think will be 3rd and 4th?
Well, I think FlyQuest should be 3rd. I don't think anyone has a realistic chance of catching them.
Well, they're only 1 game up now.
Right, but I
on
think
100 Thieves, Immortals, and EG.
right, but in terms of strength of schedule, they have the fourth easiest, and the two people who have easier ones are already above them, and the other one's Dig, who can't catch them. So I think assuming things, and this is always a dangerous assumption right now because this season has not been normal. StatsBot has a negative prediction rate, which I don't think I've seen before. It's a really wacky season. And so it's kind of hard to be like, if everything goes according to these win percentages, which it won't. But if it does, I think no one can really catch FlyQuest, and they're playing a bunch of the teams who could catch them. So if they start winning some of those games and knocking them down, I think that they should solidify into third quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think FlyQuest is in there. If I don't vote with my stock, and try and say like, oh, somehow, I think it's still possible for Team Liquid. Like if EG and Immortals lose their games and then through a tiebreaker, like maybe they could get to fourth, but I'm not going to go with that one because I think that's kind of outside the realm. So I honestly am looking at EG still. I remember we checked in. It was like a week or 2 weeks ago at this point, or 3 weeks or something. Like who's going to get into playoffs? They really improved in the areas that we pointed out then. And so I definitely have some confidence in this team as well. I know that when everyone saw the roster initially and they're like, oh, Svenskeren, previous MVP, and Jizuke coming over and all these pieces, they do seem like they're coming together. So, that could be another one to put forward, but it's still up in the air like the entire season has been.
Yeah, it is really hard to say. All right, we got another one here from Architect of Death. While playing still very well, do you think that Licorice deserves to be on the All-Pro team with the recent Broken Blade level of play? No hate to Licorice because he's a C9 fan, but Broken Blade has been looking good and scary.
Yeah. I mean, especially in the game that they beat C9 in, right? His set, going in, getting all these initiations, working super well with Biofrost. I think he definitely deserves a mention.
It's tough. I think for me, it's about what you're trying to value more, like consistency or playmaking, because Licorice has had almost no bad games, whereas I can remember a couple of instances from Broken Blade.
I would say Licorice had one bad weekend a couple weeks ago. There was the Blabber insane kick where he then like dunked the guy back in to safety and died. And then I remember the follow-up game. I don't know if it was a set game or not, but I remember thinking both those weekends Licorice didn't have a great performance, but
it was weird because that was like a 15K
they
goal
still
advantage.
won and stuff. Yeah, exactly. So it is hard. The other thing with this is it's like if you're just looking at only the last like couple weeks, then you might be like, okay, yeah, like Broken Blade really, deserves it. They beat C9 and everything, but All Pro is also the entire split. So it is hard because Licorice has been so consistent throughout. And then that's where you have to start thinking about, okay, well, like, yeah, but he has a better team and blah, 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 and this type of thing. So I think it really depends on kind of how you're weighing it. But I do think it's at least getting closer. It feels like it's probably the position closest to maybe not being just like full Cloud9 All Pro.
Mark's cat is like the most chill cat I've ever seen. He's just like molding the face and loving the massage.
This dude, I swear I've never seen a nicer cat. This is Ashley's cat. She raised him. I don't know what she did because the other cat did not turn out this way. The other cat's a sad.
The other cat was influenced by you.
Probably that's the problem. This cat is just like, whatever, dude.
That's like Buttons, my big black cat that was actually going crazy. Anytime we sit on the couch, Buttons immediately comes and just sits in your lap and just like starts kneading you or like wants head rubs or whatever. It's pretty cute. We got one more question here. This one comes from Cacti at Cacti, I guess. Hooray for LCS returning. What are some of your favorite in-game moments for games you've casted? Any interesting behind-the-scenes moments you'd care to share? Cheers.
Games that we have casted all time.
Could be whatever your interpretation is.
Yeah, because for me, for sure, it's the MSI with CLG comeback. That I never doubted them one. That I was just so freaking hyped for that comeback because every year, all year, my whole life, everyone's just always just shit talking NA, and at that tournament as well. You know, for them to come out with the NA jerseys, they had the Canada version, the United States version, and they had Afromoo setting the support trend, changing the meta of the tournament. Them being so far out of it and making a comeback like that just gave me chills. Like thinking about some of the greatest comebacks in sports history, like the Miracle on Ice. Having watched that movie, it was like those levels of underdog succeeding are some anime stuff.
I will go with a recent one then. That I was lucky enough to cast, the Pobelter TP flank against TL, the 1v3.
Elder Dragon.
Yeah. He flashes over Brox's Q. He like combos one guy, kills him, ults the other guy. You know, Brox is already knocked into his GA from his first scatter and stuff. That was sick. And that was a game that was just feeling like it was never going to end. And then FlyQuest kept getting these, you know, the Baron and the Elder and all these objectives, and they couldn't close the game. And it was just such like a 1v9 moment. That was just Pobelter taking the game into his hands and just, I'm going to end this, you know?
Yeah, especially because it had gone on so long. And we were
it was like 50 minutes.
CLG had control for they had
three
multiple Barons and Elder Dragons, and everyone is just like, end it now. And then Pobe goes, all right, I got it.
Yeah, there's no reason to think that Elder Drake would have actually ended it with how the game was going. So
yeah,
that's pretty crazy. Mine's, I mean, I'm not a caster, so I can't be like,
yeah, give the behind the scenes moments.
Yeah, so I was going to give you a funny behind the scenes moment. And I don't regret doing the silver scrapes thing, but it's definitely some points where I'm like, God. But it's actually really funny how it came about. Obviously, I just did it randomly for a semifinal game. But then for finals, I actually wasn't even working that weekend when I did it on stage. I was brought up there by another company to like just do some random stuff for them because I wasn't on the actual AD. And then the third, fourth place match happened. That went to 5. And then the next morning before the finals, I was outside just like sitting, waiting to get into the venue at like some side press entrance. And then like Dave, our producer, comes out and we're both like just super tired. And he was like, hey, how about that 5-game series? And I was like, yeah, pretty crazy. And he's like, too bad you couldn't do silver scrapes. And I was like, yeah, maybe if it happens this time. We're both like, haha, good joke. And then like game 3 happens. And like, I think this is like right when C9 started winning. Because I think it was 2-0 TSM, 2 for C9, and TSM won the final game. This was like the Jensen stopwatch and all that finals. And yeah, so then like he hit me up on Slack, I think, and he was like, so do you want to do this? And it was entirely spur of the moment. No tech check, no rehearsal. My IFB was doing nothing in my ears, so loud I couldn't hear anything on stage. And it was just this mess of a moment that just came about because like we're down to meme. So I thought that was as much as it's some cut been a pain, it's also so funny how it came about.
Yeah. So the game I talked about is my favorite like all-time moment, but I was thinking more behind the scenes stuff. Now that you're mentioning like funny stories, we should say something about the worlds that we cast from nighttime in LA in flip schedule, because everyone was just losing their minds. And we had this giant, I don't know what to call it, but like the hamster ball thing that you put a human in.
Oh, yeah.
And we would come in at like 4 a.m. and stuff for our calls, and people would be rolling around in the giant human hamster ball, and Flowers would be like bouncing people into the wall. And
yeah, people get like, messed up.
It was just this entire like everyone's just going crazy. It's all this nighttime stuff, and everyone's just playing games together. And
our manager Kim tried to like we were all bouncing into people. Like someone got on the ball and got like people would like bonk into them and try to knock them over, like bowling ball them. And Kim did it. I can't even remember to who, but just bounced off of it and like hit her head and stuff. Those the nighttime shows can get kind of loopy when people are just like struggling to stay awake and stuff in between, especially if you come in and you do like countdown and then you have to cast the last set or something and you're trying to stay, awake and energetic in the hours in between. People can get pretty loopy, just like pounding coffee and being ridiculous.
One of my favorites was I think it was MSI when Game of Thrones was ending, and we were all
Blaming
so
it.
effing mad about that. And like it would just be like people who had seen it would like go break off into a room and just flame it, and then they would come out, and then like someone new would watch it, like when they weren't casting or something, and then they would come out, and then everyone would flame it, and like because the event's like 2 or 3 weeks, we watched. I think basically the entire season, maybe it started in season in the middle somewhere, but everyone was just hard flaming the show, and it was like a bonding experience.
Yeah, that was really funny. Yeah, I've a lot of good memories for the nighttime MSIs and stuff too, when all the European casters are here, and I'll just be in the office because like Joanne would be asleep, right? Because she still was working on her regular schedule. So it's like, this is my computer. This is where she sleeps. So me being on the computer, I would just keep her awake. So I would just go into the office, and it would be me and like all the European casters, and we're just like playing, normals and stuff at like 5 a.m. just trolling around, just trying to stay awake, because you don't want to fall asleep and ruin your schedule for the show days, because you need to have energy, right? So you have a couple days off, and you're like, all right, how can I stay awake and focused for like 12 hours?
Me, Dracos, and some of the OS boys have like a tradition where we always just pick something to like go super hard on. So like 2 or 3 years ago, it was like right when PUBG was popping off. So we just played PUBG every night to stay awake. And then it was like auto chess last year or something. So there's always some like trend that we go hard on.
Yeah. I mean, actually, a lot of the things that we go through that are hard, we end up like bonding over and having a lot of good memories. Because I also am thinking, when we had Worlds in China and we actually went to China, like it was so rough trying to deal with the firewall and all these different things traveling around. But then some of the funnest parts were like when we went to the Great Wall.
That was hype.
And we went on the slide down it, and like we've been to Disneyland in foreign countries, and like this so many like crazy little things when we're all going through something together.
Yeah, it can be crazy because I mean you're on the road for a really long time. We were in China for what, like 6 weeks, something like that. All the way through to finals of Bird's Nest, and you're away from home for a long time. Sometimes people are getting like people get sick on the road a lot more than they would at home. Whether it's like food issues or whatever. But yeah, you definitely end up with some cool memories. I can't even remember the city. Where was that city where we went in that big park and we were like in that like boats in the park? Remember, it was I
think it was Guangzhou.
That was actually, that was a really good memory I have from China as well. There's this huge park, and you could like rent these little boats, and we're like kind of like paddling around in this park, and in these like little swan boat type things, like me, you, and I think Travis and Shocks.
Yeah.
So it's definitely fun to get to kind of travel around and see some of the different places.
All right. That is our last Twitter question. So unless you guys want to do like solo queue Clash updates, I think we are good.
I've only played ARAMs. I haven't done anything cool.
We're good, man. First episode remote of the dive.
I think it went great. Congratulations, fellas.
We killed it, guys.
It did. There was many more pets. There was some more jank, a little bit more scuff, but it felt good.
Yeah. So everyone check out Commissioner Greeley tweeted out, the LCS retweeted all the information for exactly how we're going to do LCS upcoming for this weekend is on social media. So we're going to have a show. Hope everybody enjoys it, and hope all the internet for everyone stays up.